Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Career Chronicles. I'm Sloan and so excited to have those of you who are joining us live and anybody watching after the fact. Excited to have you guys here as well. We're joined by Ashley Chang and so excited to have her here with us and talk about her company Sundays, and we'll introduce it a little more in depth in a moment. But I did want to briefly just share what Career Chronicles is all about in case any of you are new to the podcast. I started this podcast earlier this year with the hopes that I would be able to highlight the professional experiences of women and educate organizations on how to better recruit and retain women, and hopefully just improve the working lives of women and personal lives too, of course. And I'm so excited to be joined by Ashley, who is the CEO of Sundays, a company that aims to give working parents more of their time back through the use of executive assistants and technology. And this is a topic that's incredibly important to myself and a lot of the women and men that I talk to. Those of us who are working parents, we know that time is our most precious resource, and we want to figure out how to get more time back in the day. And creating that flexibility allows us to be better professionals. It allows us to be better parents, better versions of ourselves. So Ashley, I love that you have created a company with that purpose in mind. So I'm so excited to talk about Sundays and the impact you've seen it have on women and working parents in general. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sloan. I'm so excited to be here. And I love that you are building Career Chronicles and gathering all of these great voices together.
Yeah, thanks. It's been so much fun because my 9 to 5 job is recruiting folks for positions with my clients, and a lot of the people I talk to, particularly women or working parents, we talk about issues of work-life balance and what they're looking to get out of roles. So I hear it time and time again of like, I need to pick up my son from childcare at this time, and I need to drop him off at this time. I need a workplace that understands that. And so time is a constant struggle. So I love that you're trying to give people time back. Before we talk more about Sundays, I'd love to just ask you if you can recall or share with folks how you and I got connected.
Yeah, I think we actually met on LinkedIn. So it's nice that we're doing this LinkedIn live. Yeah. And LinkedIn it's been really powerful for me and for Sundays. It's our main marketing channel. I think there's a lot of awesome working moms on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I never really invested in it before this year, but starting in January, we kind of experimented with posting, and it's been really awesome. And I've met a lot of great people like you through it.
Yeah, and you said you're using it as a recruiting tool as well, to find talent. And I know it's just a great place to network more organically. I think it can get a bad rap for being sometimes superficial, and there's definitely some of that you kind of have to weed through and find the people who are looking to authentically connect with others. So it can be a great tool for that. I'm glad that we were able to find each other there. I also just wanted you to get a chance to share a little bit about why you started Sundays and why did you think a company like this was needed?
Yeah. So we're a relatively young company. We're about a year and a half old at this point. And I was in the tech industry for like 10 years before this, mostly as a product manager. My impetus for starting Sundays actually was my own mom. She was a computer scientist in the Bay Area in the 80s. And then when she started having kids, she felt like she really had to choose between family and work. And she ended up staying home with us, which I'm super grateful for. But I also feel like she missed out on some opportunities for fulfillment outside of home. And then also like the world missed out on a lot of things that she and entire generations of women could contribute.
Yeah.
And then when I entered the tech industry, like 25 years later, it's very male dominated, as you know.
Yeah.
I was like working with engineering teams and leadership teams that had very few women and even fewer moms. And then as I've gotten older, even the few women who started there, often when they have kids, feel like they have to make the same exact choice. And I think that's just like crazy because everything every piece of technology we use today was created in the last 30 years, but we haven't really made very much progress in how we think about like balancing family and work. So I I just kept coming back to caring a lot about this problem, and then decided to try to work on it. And I interviewed like every parent I could talk to. I ended up talking to like 300 parents in the first few months.
300?
Yeah, a lot.
Oh my gosh. Was it mostly moms, or was it moms, dads, anybody?
It was a good mix. It started out mostly with like people I personally knew, and because I
Okay.
had been on these like engineering teams, a lot of them were dads.
Yeah.
And so I started with dads, and then I kind of would get referrals to just like other parents who they thought would care about this problem.
Were there things you
And
heard from dads that were surprising? Because I do think I have a bias towards working moms, because I am one, and I think I talk to a lot of working moms, but working dads experience some of these things too.
yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the dads I talked to had like the same issues where it was like it's really hard to balance like family and work, especially as people are like being pushed to go back to the office and stuff like that. They're like, I really feel the difference when I like can't be there and be as present for my
Yeah.
family. And struggling with that balance. I do think that moms, all the moms I talk to take on like a lot more of like the mental burden and planning. And so sometimes dads would be like, oh, it just feels like it's all handled. Like it's not too bad.
Of course it
So,
does.
so I think there's a lot of different perspectives. But there definitely are dads who are also handling a lot of that like mental burden too. And I think for everyone, just like the way we think about work and family is like, it's really hard to balance both of them.
Yeah, it is really hard. And I think something I've noticed now that I became a working parent last year. I became a mom in May of last year, started working again in October. So I haven't been doing it that long, but I am starting to realize, I guess, the struggle. And I'm thinking back to my 23-year-old self and how I just came to work and thought that the working moms I worked with were also just coming to work in the same way that I was. And now I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like now that I know what they were all dealing with in before hours, before work in the early AM, and then what they were dealing with after work, I'm like, how are they showing up with the same energy level as I was at 23 when I had no other outside responsibilities? Like my mind is blown. And I'm just, yeah, it's just a perspective shift of once you are in that position. And so I'm just constantly aware now that the workplace brings together people from all different stages of life, and we meet each other where we are. And the more we can understand that, the better we can support one another in this, journey of work-life balance. And so I try to be aware of that more now. Of how different people's experiences might be different than mine. I might work with single parents on my team who are doing it all on their own, whereas I have a partner that helps and contributes. And I also work with working dads on my team who have partners who are stay-at-home parents. And so they are able to have more support than I do with a working spouse. So there's just, everybody comes at it from a different point of view. So let's talk more about, how does Sundays solve this problem for people? Tell us the nitty gritty benefits that parents get from utilizing Sundays.
Yeah. So I started out talking to those like 300 parents, and I came from like a tech and product background. So I was really looking for like, what's a product to build here that's like going to solve the problem for everyone. But the more parents I talked to, the more it felt like one product wasn't really going to be impactful enough. Everybody just like told me time and again that they like needed time back, and that they had like negative time in any day to do things. And so we experimented with a few different versions, but what we ended up with is we have a team of executive assistants. They're all based in the US, and they're mostly other parents. So they come with a lot of experience of what it means to be raising a family in the US and balancing that with work. And then each family works with one person. So it's super relationship based. It's like they get to know you and your husband and your kid's name, and like who likes broccoli and who doesn't like broccoli and things like that. So they can really take on a good amount of like the mental burden of what you're thinking of. And then our goal is to proactively help you. So we'll talk to you about like, what are your goals for the next 6 months, and then work backwards to like what needs to happen today. And then we're also there if like anything comes up day to day where you're like, I really need to call the pediatrician, but like their office closes at 4 and I have calls until 4.
What is with the 4 o'clock closings and everything? the pharmacy. It's like, I need to go get this prescription for my daughter, but they aren't open when I'm off work. So it's like, I got to tell my boss, I got to leave work to go to the pharmacy. It's just,
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. So it's really hard. And that's the kind of stuff that we love to help with. And so super human relationship driven. And then we have a little bit of tech behind our team where we like keep track of the research we do, and that helps us be more efficient. So if we are like researching summer camps in Nashville, next time we have that question, we're starting from like all the research we've previously done.
Yeah, I love that. I want to definitely dig into some of the things that they're most often, that the executive assistants are most often taking off the parents' plates. But we did get a question in the chat, so I wanted to answer that as close to live as we can. But as a leader in tech and a champion for working parents, what inspired you to create Sundays, and how do you see the role of technology evolving to further support women in balancing work and personal life? It's a great question. Thank you.
I love that. This is also my first LinkedIn Live, so I'm like super excited to get something
Isn't this
actually
cool?
live. Yeah,
it's so fun. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, I'll answer it in two parts. So, what inspired me to create Sundays? I told the story of my own mom and how she was in the tech industry many years before me, and experienced how hard it was to balance family and work then. And then I have my own experience of being in the tech industry for like over a decade, and especially in like the R&D engineering part of it, where there just are very few women. And so I've always tried to create groups and like communities of women, and then also like mentor people who want to move into more technical roles. But I've definitely seen that as people get further and further in their career, it often gets like harder for them to be in many of those roles, because a lot of and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later, Sloan, but a lot of those roles are really demanding, and they require like on-call hours and being on really late. And so I think that if we want to have women be like a part of these leadership teams, we need to think about like how we define good work. So I want to be a voice contributing to that. And then I think the role of technology can be really interesting here. I think that so far we haven't really seen supporting families be a huge focus of like the tech industry as a whole. But I think over the last like year and a half or 2 years, it's been really cool to see the role of like AI and how people are applying that to family stuff. We're doing a little bit of that mostly in the back end for our team to just be more efficient. But I think there are some other companies that are trying to make support for families more like widely accessible, where they're putting AI in the front. And I think there's still like some kinks to work out and like how much it can really take on for you. But I think as that continues to evolve, it'll be really exciting to see that balance or like help with personal stuff, because I think one thing that's really hard from a tech perspective of building personal stuff is like it's so variable. Like every family needs slightly different things. But I think AI is cool in that it can kind of like standardize those things across families.
Yeah. First, thanks Pramuk for your question. And Katie's here. Hi, Katie. 100% we need more support for moms and families. So glad you're helping with that, Ashley. I think there's so many things you said that I want to call out. First, you guys are putting human beings behind your service offerings. And I think that's so important because every family's needs are unique. So the fact that your executive assistants get to know the family on a deeper level is so important. AI was mentioned. I have found personally that AI can really, save you time. We personally use it for creating grocery lists and meal plans. And that is a huge task that used to take us a couple hours a week, every week. That it now reduces that significantly. Now we're not the best at using it every single week. We could definitely do a better job at that. But yeah, technology can help, women balance professional and personal lives. I wanted to ask your perspective, Ashley, as somebody who has started a company in this space. I'm wondering if the reason we haven't seen many technology companies or technology products focus on families and products for families is a fear, and maybe an incorrect fear, that there's not profit to be made there. I mean, we know we live in a capitalist society. Profit drives the products that are put on the market and whether the products are able to succeed on the market. So in your experience, do you feel like this is an underserved market and that there could be, we could both be having a great impact on people's lives and having successful businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes. It was really interesting. So I was in tech. Most recently I was at Carta, which is like a financial tech company. And when I left Carta, we are actually intentionally a bootstrapped company, but a lot of VCs would like reach out and they would be like, why are you not building a fintech company? Like you should be building like a B2B fintech company. And I was like, that's just not what I care about. But I definitely think that when you see like where investment goes in the market, it tends to go to like places people are comfortable and where they've seen like success before.
Yeah.
And it feels much more risky for them to be investing in an area where there hasn't already been like a big
Yeah.
successful company they can reference. So I
Yeah.
think that plays into it a lot. I do definitely think that it's possible to build a like meaningful company in this space. And one thing I love about being bootstrapped, so like we are self-funded basically, is that
Yeah.
we get to prove that to ourselves all the time. Like we're
Yeah.
like, this company can only exist if we have paying customers that like feel
Yeah.
like it's a real need. And so we've been able to like find customers and have them want to pay for like the service that we're giving them, which is really awesome. So we're
Yeah.
definitely early, but I feel like I think it is an underserved market. I think there's like real need that families have. I think you can build a business here. And our goal is definitely to like build a good business and do make a lot of impact for families.
Yeah. Are you able to share anything about your cost structure, like ballpark, what, a typical family pays to use the services at Sundays?
Yeah. So we basically sell like blocks of hours that recur on a monthly basis. And then our typical packages, we do like most families are around 10 hours and it's $45 an hour, but we also track the time we spend to the minute. So we think it goes pretty far. Like if we're calling
Yeah.
your pediatrician and that takes 7 minutes, then we're only tracking those 7 minutes. And our team
Nice.
will work with multiple families. So like if they can like stack up all their phone calls in a row, whereas like
Yeah. They can do an hour block, but they're getting paid by multiple families. Okay.
so they can like be really efficient with their time. Whereas like if you call the pediatrician and you have to like wait 15 minutes for them to call you back, it's just like a distraction for that whole
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, we
This
think
is
that
blowing my
works well.
mind. I'm like, this is like, why didn't I know about this sooner? Like everybody needs this. So it's $45 an hour. Most families, you said, do between 5 to 10 hours a month. Is that about
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. That seems doable. I mean, something Katie said in the chat that I wanted to highlight is replacing people. And I think what Katie's referring to is replacing employees at work who aren't supported cost a lot of money, which can hurt organizations' bottom line. And absolutely, I know many women, myself included, who have had to make career changes because our work-life balance wasn't supported at the place we worked and it just wasn't going to be doable. And women, time and time again, I'll tell you, we're going to put our family first. We're incredible contributors at work, but you will lose out on our talent if we don't feel supported and if we are able to make a move. And a lot of women are making those choices, and it costs a lot of money to replace talent. I can say that as someone who's in the recruitment business. It's not easy to find the right talent, and it can be costly. And you're losing on time when that seat's not filled too. So,
and even when people stay, they're often like spending, I don't know, 20-30% of their time doing family admin stuff at work because that stuff needs to happen.
It has to happen.
And no one else is going to do it if you're not doing it and you don't have families.
Yeah. Have you seen organizations, or have you guys approached organizations about paying for Sundays as a service offering to their employees? Because I would think that would be an incredible selling point to work for a company. Is like, we'll supply you with this service.
Yeah, we are working with some like smaller companies doing that today. We haven't really approached big companies just because like the sales cycle is really long. But we are starting to work with for some companies we're offering it to like all their employees or parents. We often will work with like executive teams or people who are kind of like on high trajectory tracks, especially women. And I think it's really interesting that overall, like women are having kids later. So that means that like often they're in their like early 30s when they're starting to have kids. And that's also the same time that like they've like been promoted recently and they're like in leadership roles. And so we see people who are having their first kids and they're like a director or a VP of something. And so I think even more than I think like, it's like really expensive to companies to like lose these people because they put a lot of like time and training into
the institutional knowledge that that person
point.
has, having worked their way up to that promotion. You would lose a lot of knowledge and experience if they were to have to say, I got to step away because I now have a child and this just isn't aligning. So it's much better for the organization to say, hey, we're going to cover the cost of Sundays for you. That opens up, 5 to 10 hours for you every single month that can be given back to work and your mental health, and make you a better performer, more present person at work. And we've talked on the podcast about a lot of other things workplaces can do, like flexible hours, flexible schedules, remote work. Those are all things that help keep women retained in leadership.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm so excited that we're able to talk about this. And this literally put us right on track for my next question. And so I was going to ask you, how does Sundays play a part in getting more women in leadership? And we've talked about that. So from the women that you've talked to that are using Sundays and are in leadership, how is that reshaping how we view women and work culture? Like, how is this, changing what they're able to do?
Yeah. I mean, so my ultimate goal is like get more moms in leadership, because I think like the only way that we change culture is like by having representation on leadership teams, or like making these decisions about how work is going to look for like all the people in their companies. And so it's really fun to get to work with these like moms who are like in leadership roles or are moving up to leadership roles. That's like one of the best parts of my job. I get to like talk to them on a regular basis. But what we do is we just like give them time back and like a trusted person. So a lot of times we'll be like, we're like a text message away. So people will just be like, we'll meet with them regularly. We'll say like, what are the things that are coming up? And then we'll take ownership over actually making those things happen. So say you're like, it's a little bit early this year, but like planning for summer camp next year, like we'll be like, okay, we are going to own planning for summer camp. So that's like, planning for summer camp is like really intense depending on how many kids you have.
Having to do with childcare is intense. And I'm having third person experiences of relief when you say that, like, we are going to own that task for you, Sloan. Like, we're going to take that off your, I'm like, wow, like the weight that would lift off my shoulders would be astronomical.
Yeah. So that's the dream, is like, we are like in charge of making it happen. And then we check in with you, like when a decision needs to be made. But our goal is to like really take off like that mental load of having to do it, and the time burden of like, you don't have to spend 10 hours researching all the camps in your area and then figuring out like, or doing the Tetris of like which kids can go to which camps when.
I want to talk about no, sorry, you go ahead. You finish your
thought. So our goal, like what we do is like, we'll take off the mental load of like those longer term projects. And then we'll also like, if things pop up, like today you got a parking ticket that you need to pay or something like that, we'll also just like send those small things to us. So it's like a place where you, instead of putting things on your to-do list, you can like hand them off to someone else who can fully own them. And then I think we've gotten really positive feedback from our users that gives them more focused time both at work and quality time at home with their families.
I want to talk about the mental load, and I'll get a little personal here because this is something my husband and I talk about a lot, is the mental load. And I've tried to explain to him, not to throw him under the bus, I think he gets it, but it like, he's like, I'll do anything you ask of me. And I'm like, I don't want to have to ask. Like, I don't want to have to be in charge of everything and have to be the delegator of tasks. Like, I just need you to do it. So like, how do you guys mitigate against that? Like, obviously the executive assistants know that there are certain things that need to be done for everybody, but obviously they wouldn't know a situation like, oh, Sloan got a parking ticket. They're not going to, like, I'm going to have to go through the task of like reaching out to my executive assistant and asking her or him to do certain tasks. How do you make sure that it isn't like, how do you, kind of reduce the mental load, the organization, and the delegation that has to happen between the customer and the executive assistant?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's tough to solve, especially because we do like everything.
Yeah,
we do everything remotely. So it's not like we see your house and we're like, that needs to get to No, we actually.
My husband can see things. He needs to just see and do.
We might do some in-person stuff later, which I'm excited about. But right now, everything's remote, so it's really based off of like building that relationship early on. We try to get as much information as we can about your family and what's important to you, and like what changes are coming up in the next few months, so that we can be proactive about it. We also have calendar access for a lot of people. So both in terms of like getting things onto the calendar, but also looking ahead. So we can be like, hey, you have a baby shower in 3 weeks. Like, did you want us to order a gift? And like doing that so that you don't have to like be all the time. And then the other thing that we're doing on the technology side, which I think is cool, is like we have families that fit into these different kind of like profiles where we've seen like a lot of people with 2-year-olds will need like they're going through the preschool application process, or like people with older kids might be getting into more advanced extracurricular activities. And we see like interesting patterns of the types of things that families need at these different phases of life. And so we're trying to build out like tracks that we think families might be on at different points where we can like know or suggest things that we think are coming up to them too.
This is so cool. I'm thinking back to my undergrad degrees in human development. And so I'm thinking there's an element of understanding child development here and family development and family theory.
We have one of our, like, we don't have a big team internally, but our one of the people on our team is a former teacher and has like a lot of background in like family and child development too, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's such an important perspective to have as a basis for what you're offering. So that's that. I was going to ask if you guys had that. So that's super cool. Joey said, as a gunkle, I feel like I need a Sunday assistant to stay on top of my nieces.
Joey is like, I know Joey. Joey is like one of my best friends. Hi, Joey.
Hi, Joey. Thanks for being here. It's true. It takes a village. My sisters and my mom, my grandparents, they all chip in to help take care of my daughter. And, I fully trust all of them. So sometimes they'll keep her the entire day. They'll replace me as sort of all the duties, and they'll report back that it is exhausting. And that's why I have to kind of rely on multiple people, because it is tiresome. Joey, we're glad to have you here. Gunkles are welcome. Katie said, for an example, give suggestions for this child turning 3. That sounds so fun to do the planning. I agree, Katie. Katie is one of my connections. We actually met before this, but we're both in the Society of Working Moms. It's a really great networking group, and I would love to give them a plug while we're on the podcast. And yeah, Katie, I agree. It would sound so fun to be one of these executive assistants. I don't know that you and I are in the right life stage right now, since we both have our own little toddlers running around. We probably don't have the extra time, but it would be fun if like that could be my full focus. I've often felt that since becoming a mom, of like, I wish I could just fully focus on motherhood tasks and household tasks, but then I would also miss the feeling I get at work when I deliver on something. Like, I do love working as well, and I don't want to give that up. So have you heard from moms that like Sundays allows them to get to have both? You get to have more time for both the rewarding motherhood, rewarding work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we actually, like, when we start working with people, we try to do this exercise. It's called like a time and energy audit, where you could do it 2 ways. You could just like brain dump all the things you have going on, or you can look like over the course of a day or two, can track like, what are you doing every like 15 to 30 minutes, and make a list. And then we have people rate that on like, how much energy is this thing giving you? And like, how much does it need to happen? And then we want to prioritize in life, like the things that are giving you energy and like light you up. And those can be like across work and home. And so we want to basically take off the things that like don't give you energy, so you have time to focus on those things that do.
Yeah.
And that could be
that's an incredible exercise for anybody to do. Like, we all need to be doing this constantly, is an energy audit, time and energy audit.
Yeah, I did it myself recently, and it was really useful.
Were there certain things you were doing that you're like, I don't need to be doing this anymore? Like, this is a waste of my time and energy?
Yeah, I mean, there were certain things where I was like, this doesn't need to like happen at all. Like, we should just get rid of this. And then there are other things where I'm like, okay, let me delegate this to for my family. Like, let me see if my husband wants to take this on. Or at work, where I've also been growing quite a bit. So trying to figure out like which things are like best for me to spend my own time on, and what things should we have like someone internally who can put more like focus towards it, working on instead.
I have found, for me, a big thing is the house doesn't have to be perfectly clean all the time. Like, those are just like weird expectations that I put on myself that just, I have to take a step back and be like, does it even matter? Is anybody coming over? No. So that can just go to the wayside. So yeah, it's a constant audit on what's sucking up your time and energy. I know we're coming up on 30 minutes. I want to be respectful of your time. If anybody in the chat has last minute questions for Ashley while she's here with us, please put them in. But this has been an amazing conversation. I do want to ask you the last question I ask of all my guests, which is when or where have you felt most empowered as a woman?
Ooh, that is a great question. I feel like it's right now. I love like being, I think that like this type of community, especially on LinkedIn, has been so empowering where just like I used to be much shyer about just like sharing my opinion and what was like going on in my life. But I found LinkedIn to be like such a welcoming place to do that, and I think I've been able to connect with like just really supportive people who also have similar problems and really care about solving those problems. And so it's been a really awesome place to be all together working on this.
Well, I have to say, honestly, I don't think I've ever come across an organization like Sundays. I haven't heard of anything else like it that is so aligned in the things that I need as a working mom, that I've heard from other working moms. So this is amazing. Like I'm excited. Like I'm so giddy right now that this exists. And like I talked to you before, but just talking to you more about it, the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, wow, this is truly amazing. Because I think it's easy to say, well, we're planning this time management offering or this executive assistant, but this is truly geared towards, like, the thought you guys have put into it for it to be geared towards working parents is incredible. So, and the cost seems affordable. Like this seems accessible to families, and I'm hoping we can see more organizations invest in this for their employees. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I would love that too. And our goal is to make it as accessible as we can. I think that also recognizing like this type of work as like real valuable work that should be paid, I think is like, can be pretty transformative for how we think about this overall.
Well, I'm not going to quote the research correctly at all. And let's be honest, when I say research, I probably saw this video on TikTok or Reels, but it was somebody who, collected the hours that a stay-at-home parent, usually a stay-at-home mom, puts in and the tasks that she does. And if you outsource them, I think the salary is equivalent to $200K a year. Like the types of like the hours of just childcare, the cooking, like that would be a chef, the childcare would be a nanny or, paying for a daycare, the executive assistant type tasks, all of that. If you were to have to outsource that to somebody else, you'd be spending $200K a year. So it's really powerful when you put the dollar figure to it and actually give, a number to that and speak that value out. And like you said, it's nice to recognize that these are tasks that should be paid because they have to happen. So before I talk your ear off, before we go too long over time, I'll wrap us up. But Ashley, thank you for being here. I'm going to continue to shout you out on LinkedIn and hopefully get more people, familiar with Sundays. This is incredible. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Sloan.
Yeah, take care. Bye, everybody. See you guys next time.